Hi, I'm Eoin Meldon. I'm the head chef of the Little Bird Cafe in Portobello. The recipe I'm going to be cooking today is a spinach and cream cheese pie. The filling is primarily made out of spinach. There's a little bit of onion in there, there's a little bit of garlic, and then there's some cream cheese that's going to balance everything out. The pastry we're going to be making is a classic short crust pastry with a little bit of a twist. I'm going to use a little wholemeal flour. It just gives it more of a bite, and I really like the flavor and the texture it gives. And we're going to serve that with some seasonal leafy greens in a nice mustardy vinaigrette. So we're going to start by making our pastry. So we're going to take about 120 grams of salted butter, and we're going to chop this up into cubes using the bridge method. So with our hand over the butter, you want to put the knife between your hands and press down. And you're just going to make one clean cut, press down again, cut all the way through, and then we're going to go back over. The knife is always facing away from you, and then we're going to cut that into cubes. Now we're going to take our flour. I have 100 grams of whole wheat and 150 of plain flour. The whole wheat's just there for some nice texture and it adds a lovely flavor. But you can just do it with plain flour. So we're going to break the butter up into the flour. We're going to make sure everything is nice and coated, and we're going to start with our fingertips pressing the butter into the flour. And what we're looking for here is a consistency that resembles fine breadcrumbs. We're just going to add a nice pinch of salt. So that's about a teaspoon all in, and we're just going to work that into the pastry. Okay, so now it's time to add in our liquid. So we're going to start with some lemon juice. So I'm only going to use the juice of about half a lemon. It only really needs 1 or 2 teaspoons. So in we go with our lemon juice. We're going to add to that just a little drop of white wine vinegar. Again, just about half a teaspoon. And then we're going to work that through the pastry. So what we're looking for here is for the pastry to start coming together. You want it to be kind of in one big piece and not clinging to the sides of the bowl. I'm going to need to add a little bit of water to this because it's not yet coming together. Little by little, we're going to put in maybe a tablespoon at a time. Work it through until everything starts coming together. So we can go back in with our hands, work it all back together. And what we have is a nice ball of pastry. It's not too sticky. So we're going to wrap the pastry up in cling film, and we're going to put it in the fridge for at least 15 minutes, but preferably over half an hour. So you want to just press that together into a nice flat disc, because the flatter it is, the quicker it's going to cool down in the fridge. Now our pastry is resting, we're going to start with our filling. So we're going to take 1 large onion. You can use red or white. Personally, I prefer red. So we're going to leave that little beardy bit on the end, and we're going to slice right down the center. So you want to just take 1 or 2 layers off the outside, and just the bits that look a bit dry. All these outer leaves here, you can save them, you can reserve them and make stock, or you can compost them. But definitely don't throw them away. Just lift it up, pressing it against our knuckles here, and cut down into the onion. So lift it up, carefully put it on your fingers, press it back down. Now go really slowly at this stage, just go as fast as you're comfortable with. And we're going to do this exact same thing with the other onion. Again, with the knife against your fingers, tip of the knife on the board, we're just going to slowly rock back and forth and just cut the onion into little pieces. Yeah, that's our onion ready to go. And we're just going to quickly chop up some garlic. So I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with the onion, but I'm not too worried about dicing. We're just going to chop it as fine as you can, but don't worry if it's a little bit on the big side, because we're going to break it up in a second. And now we're going to take a little bit of salt, and with your hand on top of the knife, we're just going to press the salt into the garlic. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get the garlic into a nice fine paste. We're going to release some of the moisture out of it, and you're going to take away a little bit of that bitter garlic flavor. And you just want to keep working until your garlic starts to look a little bit on the pastier side and it's all kind of sticking together. Now that we have our garlic and onions diced up, ready to go, we're going to put a little bit of oil and a little knob of butter in our pot. We have our pot on a medium heat and we're going to put some salt in first, because what that's going to do is it's going to draw the moisture out and it's going to maintain a nice level of heat in the pan. What we're going to do now is we're going to saute the onions and then we're going to add the garlic. Essentially, we're going to be cooking them, but we're going to be cooking them slowly. We're going to be cooking the moisture out of them. We don't really want any color at this point. So it's been about 2 minutes. Onions and garlic are ready to go. We're going to go in with our spinach. We're going to take 300 grams of the spinach and we're going to wilt them down. So all that means is that they're going to cook out in the heat, they're going to reduce in size, and it'll be much easier to work with. Okay, so as you can see, our spinach has really reduced in size. It's starting to lose a little bit of its moisture. We're ready to go. So we can take the pot off the heat, and I'm just going to let that sit for a second. I'm just going to keep stirring it. And the spinach is now going to wilt under its own heat. Perfect. So now what we need to do is set our spinach into a colander that I've lined with a little bit of muslin, but you could just use a clean kitchen towel. Throw this in here and let it cool for a minute or two, and then we're going to squeeze it out. So we're going to set that aside, let it cool, and then we'll come back to it in 5 or 10 minutes and we're going to squeeze it out. Okay, so while we're waiting for our spinach to cool down, we can start rolling out our pastry. So this has been resting in the fridge for about 30 minutes now. We're going to take some plain flour. We're just going to lightly dust our work surface. And we're going to stick our pastry in the middle and we're going to do the exact same thing again. So make sure everything is nicely coated in flour. We're also going to coat our rolling pin just to make sure nothing sticks here. Now, we're going to slowly start working our pastry. I'm going to try and roll this out into a nice rectangle, because that's the shape of the pie that I'm going to make. We're going to take our spinach, which is now just warm to the touch. It's nice and easy to work with. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take all of this cloth. If you're not using the cloth, you can just press it with a spoon and just make sure you take your time and you get as much of the liquid out as possible. Now we're going to take this and we're going to give it a quick chop. So with your hand on top of the knife, just work your way through the spinach, just to break up any of the bigger pieces. So we're going to take our spinach that's nicely dried out. We're going to grab about 200 grams of some nice cream cheese. We're going to take a little bit of nutmeg. So I'm going to grate about a 1/4 teaspoon. And we're just going to work that through. I'm going to work the cheese and the spinach together, so we're good as we are. But just make sure you taste it at this point, because this is the last chance you're going to have before it goes into the pie. I'm going to take a little bit of egg wash that I made earlier and a pastry brush. If you don't have a pastry brush, you can just use your hands or a fork or whatever you have to hand. And all we're going to do here is we're going to brush just around the edge of half of the pastry. So this is going to act like the glue that holds everything together. We're going to go in with our filling. Now we have our nice little seal on this edge. So all we're going to do, we're going to lift up this side of the pastry. We're going to fold it over the top. And then we're going to push all the air out. We're going to press the pastry together. So we're going to seal one edge just by pressing the 2 sheets of pastry together. That egg in the middle is going to hold everything. It's going to bind it all. Then we're going to seal the other edge. So now we have everything open up to here, and we're just going to push out any air. We're going to push that filling back into the center and press the pastry back together. Lovely. So now we're just going to take our knife and we're going to clean up the edges here. You're just going to take a fork and you're going to press down into the pastry. So if you can see what I'm doing here, you're just going to press down, and all this is going to do is it's going to give it a nice looking edge, but also it's going to really make sure that the 2 sheets of pastry are well stuck together. Now we have this pastry completely sealed, but it's gonna cook and steam in the oven, so we need some space for that steam to escape. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut a couple little vents in the top, and that's gonna allow any of the moisture that's left in the spinach or the cheese, it's gonna give it a space to escape so that it doesn't burst the pastry when we're cooking it in the oven. We're gonna take the last of our egg wash, and we're just gonna brush that on top. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna give the pastry a lovely golden color. Just take your time, make sure you get every little bit. I have a nice lined rimmed baking sheet and a little bit of grease-proof paper so that my pie doesn't stick. And I'm just going to carefully pick it up, put it in the center, and we're gonna bake that at 180 degrees for between 20, 25, maybe even 30 minutes. It depends on your oven. So our pie has been in the oven for about 20 minutes. It's almost ready to go, but that leaves us just enough time to throw together a quick salad. So we're gonna start by making a vinaigrette. So we're gonna take about a teaspoon of some nice whole grain mustard. Into that, we are going to grate in 1 garlic clove. So we're gonna take a little bit of our white wine vinegar, about a tablespoon. And just because we have it to hand, I'm gonna throw in a little squeeze of lemon juice. But just the vinegar is fine if you prefer. Now, with a whisk, we're just gonna start working that together. Great, so we're just getting a little teaspoon of salt to that as well, just a pinch. And then we're gonna slowly work in our olive oil. So we're just gonna drizzle this little by little, making sure all of it gets nicely mixed in with our mixture. We can throw in our lovely greens and just give them a quick toss in that gorgeous dressing. So the salad's done, it's looking gorgeous, and the pie is just about ready to come out of the oven. And it is looking gorgeous. So we've got lovely golden brown, nice crispy edges, everything you want to see in a nice cooked pastry. So we're going to let that rest for 1 or 2 minutes, and then we're going to slice into it and plate everything up. Now this is probably enough for 6 decent sized portions, but the edge was always my favorite, so we'll go with that one. Have a little bit of pie, and we'll throw some of our lovely little green salad on the side. And that is just a gorgeous summer night's dinner. All right, let's have a little taste. So make sure you get some of that nice crusty pastry in there. Oh, it's delicious. So you've got the nutmeg in there, a little hint of lemon, the cream cheese running through everything, and that pastry. It's nice and flaky, and just a little bit of salad on the side really brings it together. Yeah, absolutely delicious. It's a simple recipe, but I highly recommend you try it, especially if you're growing some spinach. I think it's the perfect thing to do, something you've grown yourself.